What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. How's it going? My name is Bailey Canning. I am an independent marketing strategist living the dream out here in Boulder, Colorado, running my own business, doing a lot of great work for clients. And on today's video, I wanted to give you a quick overview about the process I follow to build websites in Webflow. So basically, there is the macro development process. I don't really want to get into that today. I do have a separate video from start to finish on what that looks like. I will link that in the comments below. But in today's video, I just wanted to spend the time to show you what it looks like to design and develop and then launch a project in Webflow efficiently. And yeah, hopefully this will be helpful for you, whether you are a Webflow developer or designer looking to implement a better process, or you are a in-house marketing director or business owner and you're vetting potential agencies, consultants, freelancers, etc. on their process. So if all that sounds good to you, we'll be getting into things very shortly here. But in the meantime, I would really appreciate if you could like the video, subscribe, all that type of housekeeping stuff. We got to pay the bills somehow. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. All right, so I'll be sharing my screen very briefly here to show you what it looks like from design, development, and launch real quick. But before we get into that, I wanted to first cover why the process is important in the first place. Quite frankly, if you are a developer or agency, the process should be one of the main things you are selling to your clients. And on the flip side, if you are a client looking to hire an agency or freelancer to build a website, then vetting them on the process is one of the easiest ways to figure out if they're going to have the competence to ensure that your project gets done right, as well as in an organized, stress-free manner. When it comes to building websites, having a rock-solid, standardized process in place is going to be one of the most important things to ensure that the project is kept on the rails. I've worked in agencies. I've been doing this for probably 4 to 5 years at this point. I've seen projects that go super smooth, and I've seen projects that go completely off the rails. And really, the only way to ensure that it does not go off the rails, which nobody wants, believe me, the only way to ensure that does not happen is if there is a well-defined, rock-solid process in place that all parties are aware of and in agreement of. Alrighty, so let's just dive into it. When it comes to having a rock-solid development process, it actually starts in the phase right before, which is the design phase, and that is exactly why we are in Figma right here. So what you always want to start every website project with is these UX wireframes, and this stands for user experience. And what these allow you to do is allow the client and developers to get in alignment on the content and layout structure of every page. And then once that is done, once we have the structure for each page, then the team that's being hired to create the website can then look to start writing up the copy. Now, it's very important to do this because one of the main guiding principles in the process is that we never want to take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. We want to work in a very efficient manner where we're always moving forward. We're obviously going to check in with the client and get their feedback so that we can revise. But ultimately, that is one of the main guiding principles. It's nothing too crazy, but it's definitely, you'd be surprised if you work in the agency space long enough how a lot of people never consider this. So literally, all we are looking to do here in this UX phase is get in alignment with all the content and layout. And then that way, once we're done with that, we can then move forward with creating the actual UI wireframe. This stands for user interface. And it's essentially exactly what you think of when it comes to web design. We're looking now to mock up real life pages of the website so that the client can know exactly what pages are going to look like, and then they can provide real feedback. It's also a much faster process because if we were to develop this page, this design right here in Webflow, it would be a lot more time consuming, and then making the edits will be a lot more time consuming. So that's the main benefit of a tool like Figma, is that it allows you to really experiment with different designs very quickly, where you don't need to code things. It's just more a very design oriented tool. And then you can quickly present these to your clients in a realistic manner, such as this, which we'll load in a second, where they're able to preview it as if it's a real live web page and then go into it. The images need to load, but basically you get the idea. One of the things I've done to streamline the process is, as you can see here in the UX, we have a lot more pages that are listed otherwise in the UI document, and that's because I only look to design a couple of different pages, so maybe 4 to 5 pages per project. It always depends on the scope, but basically for however many UX pages you're going to have, maybe it's a 15-page website, you then want to probably have 20 to 25% and actually mock those up in this UI frame, so that would be 3 to 5 pages, something like that. And then this way the client is able to have a solid idea of how everything looks, but we're also not going to take a ton of time mocking up every single web page and which is ultimately going to increase the cost of the project, which the client needs to pay for, and it's also going to increase the timeline because that's obviously going to take a lot more time to design right. So what I've done with a lot of my projects is I'll take anywhere between 3 to 5 UI wireframes. The client has a very solid idea of what this looks like. And if I were working with a team of developers, I would probably create a style guide just going over this more in depth. But since I was working on this project solo, there wasn't another designer or copywriter on the project. I had it basically all in my head, so I didn't really need to take that extra step. But if you are a team, I would definitely look to create a style guide. And another very important thing to note is that when we're building these wireframes, we're not building them all from scratch. We're using the Relume library. So I've talked about this in another video. I guess I'll link that as well. But basically all these sections here, we can just copy and paste in. Really speeds up the process dramatically. I would say, we're shaving 10 to 20 hours per project that's using this. Basically every single section you could possibly imagine that you might need for a website is in here. And then we're also using the client first framework, which makes the project very organized because sometimes the client might have an in-house team that'll manage the website afterwards. Then I can send over this documentation explaining exactly how the website is built and how to make updates to it and things of that nature. And then finally, when it comes to actually building the sites in Webflow, it's very easy to just essentially copy and paste all the pages over compared to if we had to take all these designs and code them from scratch time after time in Webflow. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video and you are an in-house marketing director or business owner looking to develop a new website and want to pick my brain on that project, definitely feel free to book a free strategy call with me. It's no obligation. You can think of it as a networking call. But long story short, I'll take the time to learn about your company, about its marketing and sales goals, and then help you outline a marketing and website game plan to ultimately achieve that. It's about a 30-minute call. Link in the description. You can book time directly on my calendar. And yeah, I would argue you literally have nothing to lose but a ton of wealth and insights to gain. So again, link in the description. You can book time directly on my calendar. Now, the last thing I want to mention, which has really saved me on a lot of projects, is using a dedicated project management tool such as Basecamp. There's a lot of different tools. I used to use ClickUp, but it was just too complicated and none of my clients ever used it. We're looking at one of the recent website projects I just completed here for a structural engineering firm. I'll eventually do a more in-depth video on Basecamp, but basically this is like the task list where every deliverable that we need to get done to get this project done is here. So you can see we have all the UX wireframes listed here, for example. And essentially, this just helps us stay very organized so the client always knows what's going on, what's being done. And then your team, or if you're a solo person yourself, basically has a task list for every single thing that needs to be done. And then if we were to go in here, then there's a comment thread that could open up. So basically all these kind of are like a email subject you could think of in one way. Copy is another important part as well. I did mention that briefly, but essentially in the UX phase, I start writing the copy, and then I allow the client to make edits, and then based on that, depending on how much work needs to be done and what the budget is, then we talk about who's going to exactly finish it up. But if we already have the copy done in this UX phase, then when it comes to developing the site in Webflow, very simple to just go in and copy and paste the content versus trying to write it on the fly. It's very unorganized. You don't want to be doing that, believe me. Yeah, we have like client avatars that we develop that make writing the copy a lot easier, making sure that it's on message, and then also like a content worksheet that I send over to clients. Depending on what content we need, I'll send over a easy to follow Google Doc content worksheet so that way they can easily submit all the content we're going to need. Then we have the UX wireframes listed here. So this way we ensure that we're taking care of all those deliverables. Once that's done, we then go on to the UI design. So on this project, I had to do 4 UI wireframes, which you already saw. Then when it comes to website development, so these are like general website tasks. So we need to ensure all pages have an SEO meta description and title. Obviously, we need to get client approval for the website launch. That's always important. We need to get the domain and DNS info so that we're actually able to launch it on their domain. And then the create final punch list or markup. So what I've started to use for lots of projects now is this tool called markup.io. And essentially it takes Figma's comment feature where I can click on anywhere in the website here or the wireframe here and then leave a comment, hi, client, or something like that. And essentially, if you were to go into Webflow does have their own native comments feature, but you have to access the designer, which I don't really want the clients accessing. It seems at the moment that it's more geared towards Webflow teams working together than the client actually collaborating. But this way is essentially a super easy way. It takes like 2 seconds to set up on the staging domain, and then people can then just click in. Anyone with a link can go in. So if you have multiple stakeholders, this is very helpful. And anyone can go in and click and leave a comment. They can record the screen, they can take a screenshot, etc. They can tag people in comments. That's super important because at a certain point, I will then, once I send over the website staging link, I'll then create the markup project so that they can then leave comments. I created a development plan for myself so I just stay organized, develop an assets folder that's like exporting all the images we're going to have and making sure that they're properly optimized for the web. Then getting back into my task list here. So that's like the general website project tasks that every project's going to need to have done. Then the Webflow page deliverables, all those pages are listed here. So basically I have to develop that, and probably if you were to look at some of these pages, I probably have some notes somewhere. But again, we use markup for a lot of comments. Every client kind of comments differently, so that's not too important here. The CMS collection deliverables, so basically this is for all the dynamic content. So for example here, we have a portfolio section where there's a portfolio collection list that needs to be created, and then inside that are a bunch of fields essentially where it makes it super easy to update the project going forward with new projects. So the client just needs to fill out a form on the website, and then there are new projects that can be easily added without the help of a developer like myself. Then we go on to developing utility pages, so the 404, the privacy policy, the terms of service. If there's any data or content that needs to be migrated, that goes here. Then we have a very well thought out website quality assurance review. This should be completed. But yeah, basically I've run a site audit with a tool called SE Ranking to find any issues that might be on the website that you would probably need like a technical crawler to find, and I'll add that. I'll create a spreadsheet of all the redirects we're going to need from the old site to the new website, and then I'll add those in Webflow. I will run speed tests using a tool like GTmetrix or Google Page Speed Insights to ensure that the page loads fast, and if it doesn't, then I can troubleshoot why that's not working and then fix it. I'll test all buttons and links, obviously, because we don't want any broken links. Perform a full URL crawl of the website, pretty similar to the site audit. Spell check the website with Grammarly. I will screenshot key pages and save them in Google Drive of the old website in case the client ever needs to access that. I'll also take a backup generally, and then also review the website responsively, which is essentially allows me to preview the website in a variety of different devices at the same time. So it makes the responsive check a lot faster. Then when it comes to the website launch, so you can see all the tasks we need to get done in like a 2 to 3 hour time frame. Once the website is launched, we need to submit the new sitemap to Google so it knows to index the new website. We need to review the website on an iPhone, an Android phone, an iPad, an Android tablet, etc. Eventually, I'll send an email confirming to the client and all the stakeholders that the website launch happened successfully. I will set up the email form notifications so this way the right team members get notified when someone fills out a form on the website. In this particular client project, I helped them create like a social media launch video. Probably will start doing that for all projects going forward. I will again double check to make sure there's no broken links. The sitemap is not blocked. Automated backups are set up, which is super helpful in case the site will ever go down. But with Webflow, that really just never happens, quite frankly. We'll then test all the links to make sure it all works. We'll ensure that the analytics, I generally use Google Analytics, are tracking correctly. I'll then run again a site audit on the new domain to make sure that there are no technical issues. I will check and monitor worldwide uptime to make sure that across the globe the new website is showing. Update the DNS settings, ensure the SSL is active, post message alerting the team the process is beginning. These get checked off sequentially. So if I check it off, it goes all the way to the bottom. So this is the first one I checked off, for example, and then we begin the website launch process. So yeah, that's what it looks like. This is the entire task list. And then there's also some offboarding items as well, which I handle myself. All right, and so that is pretty much an inside look at what it looks like to launch a website in Webflow from the design phase onwards. Hopefully this was super helpful. Again, this has been revised over probably like 30 plus projects in my young career to date, and I'm always looking for ways to make it even better. So if you have any questions or comments on the process, definitely leave a comment in the description and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you have any ideas for how I could potentially improve this process, I'm always looking to improve, so definitely don't feel shy about dropping a comment. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely subscribe and all that type of stuff because I'll be putting out new content like this all the time, talking about how to build really awesome websites, and then once the website is built, how to leverage a variety of digital marketing strategies to generate leads, grow revenues, all that type of stuff. So make sure to subscribe because I'm putting out about 2 new videos per week. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for watching.